Now the first thing we're going to do is remove the sternum, the breastbone from this bird, and that's where all this beautiful breast meat is. Now to do this, I'm only going to use two tools today: a small knife, the smaller the better, and a wonderful pair of sturdy kitchen scissors. Now the rule I use is if I can't see where my finger is inside the bird, I use the scissors, not the knife, and then I only use the knife when the bone's exposed and I can see where my fingers are. Alright, if you've never seen inside before, this is one I removed earlier. You can see the sternum, which is basically a piece of elastic cartilage that sits right here, and that wonderful breast meat is on either side of the sternum going all the way down along the rib cage. And what we're going to do is, using our fingers, detach that breast meat simply by sliding along the edge of the sternum. And you can see this prominent ridge right here. And as we get to the front, then we can just slide our fingers along the edge of the ribs. You see these small ribs, and detach the breast meat there, and we'll work it all the way to the side. And then we'll come back and we'll start along the other side and come all the way down and attach from here. Now to do that, the first thing I want to do is open up the body cavity of my bird, and I'm looking for this point of the cartilage right here is my starting point. And you can see it exposed right here. Now to get our initial cuts, again with a small knife, I can work the point along the cartilage between the meat and the cartilage, and do that on both sides. And then where it attaches on top of the sternum, this portion right here, I can then take the point of the knife and just come in from one side or the other, make a cut all the way across so that I expose the tip of the sternum right here. And what that does is allow me to start working my finger in along here to detach the breast meat. So here we go. We'll start on the right side and just press towards that ridge line, and you can see once you get in, it starts to go fairly easy. Work my finger forward, and I'm already all the way to the front of the bird right here. So once I get to that point, I can simply just kind of slide my finger along the edge of the ribs. I want to stay as close to the bones as I can to maximize the amount of meat I keep. And if you leave a little bit on the bone like this, when you go to make your homemade stock, it just adds a wonderful flavor. So it doesn't go to waste, and you really aren't going to lose much of it. So I've completely detached this breast, and now I'm going to move over to this side of the bird and repeat the process. Again, working my fingers right along the ridge until I get to the front of the bird, forming that pocket, and now I can come down along the rib and separate the breast from the rib cage as well. And there we have it. Now the last thing we have to do, where this wonderful skin attaches to the top of the sternum here, is a little bit resilient. So what I like to do is just kind of use my fingers and saw them back and forth like that, right along that ridge bone, and separate the skin and the remaining meat right off of the sternum. Okay? And you can see we've exposed the entire sternum here and attached most of the breast meat. I can clean this up. You can scrape a little bit right there, and we have detached the breast meat from the sternum. Now to complete the process, we're going to move to the front of the bird. Now at the front of the bird, these two bones attach to the wings of the bird in here, and there's another bone that goes down to the top. And then across the top arch here is the traditional wishbone. So I like to get that little wishbone out of the way first. So I'm going to turn the bird around towards me, open up the neck cavity, and what I'm looking for is the wishbone. And I'm going to find it right here. And try as you might, unlike in a turkey or a large chicken, these are very fragile little bones, and you can't get them out whole to make a nice little wish with. But I get those out of the way so I don't forget about them, and those small bones are floating around in my delicious bird that I find at dinner time. And if you need to, you can make a small cut with your knife right along the top edge here. Again, you're open so you can see where you're cutting, and that'll expose the wishbone as well. So if you have a little problem getting the grip on these small bones, a little bit of knife work will expose those. So now we have the wishbone out of the way, and what we want to work on is the attachment points to the wings and the bones in the breastplate. To do that, I grab my wing as a handle, pull the skin back a little bit, and I can feel a joint right here. And in fact, what you have is three bones coming together in virtually this one joint. So using my kitchen scissors, which are a lot safer, I can cut through that joint and sever that bone from the wing, and then the smaller bone that comes up from the bottom, again, cut right through the joint, grab that small bone that's coming up from the backbone area, get a good grip on it, if I can, and work that one free, and I have that bone out of the way now. And I'm going to repeat the process on the other wing. Grab my wing, bend a little bit. I'm going to find my knuckle, which is right there in my joint. Use my kitchen scissors. Cut right through one set of bones. Come back. Cut through the other set of bones. And I just want to grab that small bone that goes towards the bottom and wiggle and work it out of the way before we move on. And there we go. So at this point, we've detached here and the breast meat, and we're ready to pull the breastbone out of our hen. To do that, simply got to work my fingers back into the pocket, come all the way back down to the bottom of the ribs, and now I can go inside with my scissors, cut through those small rib bones. And we have detached the breastbone from the Cornish Game Hen, and we're prepared to move on. So the front of our bird is done. We have all this wonderful breast meat, and you can see that right there is all bone free now. And what we want to do is work on the legs and finish up in the bird. To do that, grab the drumstick and rotate forward and dislocate that joint, and then you can reach inside and you'll feel that joint as well. Again, I like to use my kitchen scissors so I don't have to worry about slipping or cutting myself. And just as we did with the wings, I'm going to cut all the way through that joint. Now you can see this thigh bone that we've exposed. Since I can see where I'm cutting, I can make an incision right along the bone, and then using my fingers, work along the bone edge and detach the bone and move it out of the way. So I have one complete drumstick free and detached from the carcass. I'm going to come to the other side and do the same thing. Bend forward, dislocate the joint, pull the skin aside so you can get inside the body cavity, find the joint right there, use my kitchen scissors, cut through the joint, expose the bone, a couple little cuts to open the meat up, use my fingers. Got a little tendon here that we didn't get all the way through, no problem. We can come right back and just cut that free. Expose that bone. Give it a rock. It'll detach out of its joint, and then we have that bone out of the way. And those are the major bones right there. So now our drumsticks are detached, our wings are detached, all the breast meat is bone free. The last thing we have to do is remove the bottom portion of the rib cage and the backbone from the bird, and we'll be done. To do that, I like to start at the very front where the neck would attach, and virtually you're starting to turn the bird inside out. You can see the top of the rib cage here, the backbone, pull it back through, and now I have it exposed. I can take my small knife, and I'm cutting more into the bone so that I'm not wasting the meat or cutting through that wonderful skin, and I'm just going to start working the skin down. Now, a lot of times you can use your fingers and do this process, but sometimes if it's stubborn and sticks, you'll rip through that skin, and then you have a little more problem with your stuffing. So a little bit of work knife work. Take your time, be patient. Doesn't take much with a little sharp knife. You can see it virtually pulls it right away from the skin. And if I'm doing these, I like to do about 6 or 8 at a time, because once you get started in the process, they just go a little bit quicker. The first one's a little rough. Don't get discouraged. The second one will be better, and after you start your third one, you'll be amazed at how fast you go through these and how wonderful they turn out. So at this point, the backbone is virtually detached. So I'm going to take my scissors, finish cutting through that very back layer of skin, which I don't like anyway. It's a little on the tough side back there. And now we've completely detached the backbone from the bird as well. So at this point, our bird is bone free with the exception of the wing bones and the thigh bones. And we have this wonderful pocket with the